Hello, it's Will from Nomios. I'm very excited to be joined by Director of Channels, Stuart Quinsey from XM Cyber in the hot seat today. So hello, Stuart.
I will.
So today we'll be announcing, we're very excited to announce our partnership between Nomios and XM Cyber. We're excited about that. And I guess the first question, Stuart, to pose to you is, what is your philosophy at XM and where does Nomios fit into that?
Yeah, sure. It's a good question. Those that know me will have heard this many times before, but for the sake of this presentation today, I focus on three areas. Right. Very first one is less is more. So we want to work with fewer partners across all of our geographies. Why? To build deep, meaningful, long-term sustainable relationships. We then have the element of focus. We want to focus deeply on those relationships and the outcomes that we're both looking for from both sides of the business. And lastly, but by no means least, we want to execute on them. And we focus very deeply on how we're going to execute over time.
Absolutely.
And where Nomios fit, I'll go back to the first question I was asked by your leadership team, which I thought was fantastic, which is, what do we need to do to become your best partner? And that really resonated with me because it told me that the cultures between our two businesses were very aligned. And then you had the right attitude and aptitude to execute, sort of looking outwardly. Beyond that, you fit within our ICPs, our ideal customer bases. So we're focused on the same types of customers. You're focused on the same kind of outcomes with them. And equally, as we start growing together, you're also interested in going on the service delivery route with us as well, which is absolutely optimal to great partnership.
Absolutely. I mean, I almost can't add anything to that. I agree wholeheartedly, so I have nothing else to talk about on that front. But I suppose from a strategic point of view or a technological standpoint at Nomios, when we were evaluating the sort of next logical step, simply adding another control wasn't enough. It wasn't necessarily the answer to prevent our customers from being the next sort of high-profile breach. I guess we need to think differently. Our customers need to think differently. So that's where continuous exposure management comes in, and naturally our partnership with XM Cyber. And how is XM Cyber going to come in and solve those challenges? That leads me to my first question, which is, what are the challenges that CISOs are facing, and how does XM Cyber address those?
Well, there are three things, and actually going back to your point about they've got all the controls. They've got all the controls, but what they don't have is the first thing I always get asked for is, we just don't have the visibility, right? So the number one thing is you can keep adding controls, but it doesn't necessarily give you more security, visibility within the environment that you're working in. So that's the very first thing, is that people say to me, Stuart, we just want to be able to see across our attack surface that any particular breach point, where could a bad actor get to? So that's number one. The second thing that most CISOs are challenged with today is that they need to be able to report risk.
Yeah.
And they need to be able to comprehensively report how they've reduced risk up to their boards. And they're really challenged with doing that in the environments that we work in today, that we'll talk about, no doubt, in a few moments' time as well. And the third part of all of that is improving their security posture on an ongoing basis. So they're the top three that I tend to have conversations with about. There's a whole multitude of other areas that they have concerns with that we can help with as well, but I'd say they're the top three.
So what exactly has changed, and how do you help?
Yeah, well, if you speak about controls, we've added all the controls, but if you think about the working environment over the last 5 years and the acceleration, digital transformation being one at such a rate of knots, cloud adoption, and a lot of the time without too much thought into the security that sits behind that transformation. AI, I don't want to, harp on it because everybody seems to, but it's introduced so much risk into the environments, and there's so much unknown around that as well. And then things like OT, you see all of this change. There's probably more change in the last 5 years than the previous 20 from a technological standpoint. And the bad actors are having a field day as a net result of that.
Right. So what positive outcomes does a risk-based tool like XM Cyber do to reduce workload risk?
So in terms of workload, if you think about, the typical environments right now, you have all these controls in places, and let's just take vulnerability management as one example of that. You're chasing around trying to fix all the CVEs out there. Yeah, you can go to risk base and have some idea that you have X that you need to fix, but what you don't have is the context of which of those CVEs fit on an attack or sit on an attack path to a critical asset or business process. And if you could reduce the workload from focusing on 100 to only two CVEs that matter, that sit on a critical path, imagine the net impact that would have operationally on your team to be able to focus on things that matter, that are critical to that environment.
Makes total sense to me. It's about priority of those vulnerabilities.
Absolutely.
So This is a bit more technical question. So how do you use digital twins of environments? What does that allow you to do?
Yeah.
And ultimately, is that not what CTEM is?
It's the essence of it. It's the essence of what we do and what makes us unique as an organization as well. We're able to take a full digital twin of the environment, the customer's environment, their entire attack surface. And I like to sort of talk and say we're actually able to ask all the questions of that environment that a bad actor could from any particular breach point or any CVE that we identify, and work out what's the blast radius from that particular part of the environment, so that we can ask those questions, put the remediative steps in place with that team before the bad actor can get to ask those questions, right? So we're always one step ahead of it. And being able to have that digital twin means you're working in real known conditions that exist today as well, which other technologies just purely and simply aren't able to do.
Right. So besides the obvious posture improvements like risk reduction, visibility, I guess what additional business value do you add?
Yeah. So it's, you've been in the industry a long time, as have I. You get a lot of questions about ROI and this, that, and the other, total economic impact. We truly have, a way to impact business value in a way that I've never seen before. So we'll work with you and each one of your customer opportunities on developing a business value impact report. And it will talk about things like, cost reduction. So we could be reducing cyber insurance premiums by a considerable amount. We had one customer that became cost neutral in year one, just on the cyber insurance premium reduction. Then you got things like cost avoidance, what costs you can avoid. You got things like efficiencies. This is probably my favorite when you talk about things like getting those FTEs to work more effectively and happier and on projects that matter the most, that have the biggest material impact in improving posture and reducing risk. That then enables you to also operationalize other technologies that perhaps you've had on the back burners to again have greater impact on improving the posture of that security for that customer. So it's a massive part of what we do, and it's a massive part of what journey we'll go on with Nomios.
Absolutely, really looking forward to it. So I guess we've spoken quite a lot about controls, but one final question for me would be, what would be the positive impact on any of the existing controls that a customer might have?
Yes, again, another good question. If you think about what I just spoke of with business value impact, efficiencies of those FTEs that have been doing that other work, being able to operationalize other techs. A great example of impact on controls is that we had a customer recently that joined us at our annual kickoff, and they were speaking about the net impact on security posture and risk reduction and all of the other things that I've already discussed. But what they did discuss, which I found really fascinating, was a reduction of the controls they had. They had 35 security controls to begin with. After actually deploying us and looking at where they didn't need specific controls, they were able to reduce that to 22. But beyond that, they were then able to look at other technologies that they'd had on the back burners for some time and introduce those far quicker. And again, that had a better material impact on their risk reduction and their overall security posture. And those FTEs that had been freed up, they were able to actually operationalize and bring that tech in faster.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Stuart.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you for joining me. And thank you for watching. We'll see you on the next one.